if anyone can finish this quote for me. Hey mom, can we go get Death Note?
We have Death Note at home.
Hi, everybody. Hi. That hit me the second I started watching this, and it just all came flooding back. We're back to doing the Zero Stars again. I was so happy. We have not done these since the Mortal Kombat movies, and we got some new people with us. Josh, Crystal, say hello.
Hello.
Oh, I don't even know what came of how we got onto this. I know that someone mentioned the movie, and I was like, man.
I know what it was. I know what it was. It was because I had never seen the Death Note anime series before. So my only exposure to Death Note, obviously I knew about Death Note from the just from the cultural impact. And when you go into a hot topic, you're sure to see the Death Note like notebooks and everything being sold. Yep. And the movie was the first time I'd ever seen it, and because I got Crystal onto Cowboy Bebop, she said, "So you're gonna watch Death Note now?" And I thought, okay. And as we were watching it, I literally tweeted out something along the lines of, "So I'm watching Not Alive Manuscript right now."
Oh, that's right.
And it's making me realize how, yeah.
That's right. The Not Alive Manuscript thing. That hit. That was it. Yep, that was it. All right. So before we start digging into this thing, because oh boy, are we gonna dig? I guess you kind of just covered it. I'll do mine. Like when my roommate moved in, we kind of had a flip-flopping of shows and stuff where it's like you suggest one, I'll suggest one, and his immediate one is Death Note. For those who know me, Mike especially, since he did the first fresh takes with me, I hold an anime Gurren Lagann about as high as any media property that can be held in a person's opinion. And that is as far as what my roommate and his brother are with Death Note and Bleach. Are about the two up there that they hold higher than anything else. So right when we started, we watched it, got all the way through it. Outside of a couple of scenes, I really liked it. And really liked it. As one of the best first opening themes to an anime ever. That second one is hot trash and get just thrown out. I hate it. I absolutely fucking hate it. But and then I was talking with Mike while we were waiting for you guys that when this thing came up, my roommate and all this, and I'm like, oh, an Americanized, whatever. And then my roommate came over with his wife, and then we sat down and all of us, and the closest thing I can say is I watched a man's soul leave his body and never return. And yeah, that's about how that got there. Mike, what is your experience?
So sort of like Josh, I don't think I ever saw the anime start to finish. I'm aware of it through cultural osmosis and being an anime fan in the mid to late 2000s. Death Note was kind of inescapable. So my first like genuine exposure to the property was, well, constant listening to both opening themes. I love the first one, and I like the second one.
I've heard some people like it. It's one thing I can say. I've heard there's no middle ground with it. You either love it or absolutely hate
it. I will say it is definitely an acquired taste.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of that band's other songs are better.
Okay.
So my first genuine exposure to Death Note was watching this movie about 4 years ago.
Oh, you poor child! Oh,
no.
And we'll get into it, but I was reading my old review before we went on air, and wow, I was a lot nicer to this than I should have been. And again, we'll get into it.
Yeah. The Death Note opening coined a term for me back when I started to get to watch a lot more anime. And recently, I had a kick where I was in a real depressive mood, and I've gotten better. I watched Akame ga Kill, I watched Kill la Kill, I watched Soul Eater, and then the Rebuild films recently. So I had a really good stretch up until we hit this. Death Note has a thing that I've coined for a thing in openings where a person is really proud of a singular moment that they pull off in an opening, and I like to call it the Death Note apple bite moment in the opening.
Yeah.
That moment where that like snare hits and he takes the bite of the apple, like they were really proud of how they pulled that off in the opening. But yeah, so the next part I was going to ask about was what was your guys' initial reactions to hearing that they were going to be doing a Netflix anime series, or not anime, live action. And I guess the fact that it was going to be a movie versus a show.
Yeah.
To be fair, in Japan, they've already done like a couple live action films, and I think even a stage production too.
They have, and I was told by my roommate and his brother to stay as far as humanly possible away from both.
Yeah, no, those like I haven't even seen them, but I've gone off of clips that I've seen, and to quote my close friend Claudia, they are very crunchy.
Like
And that is-
crunchy.
But but got it. Okay, got it. I get what you're saying.
I had watched the show when I was in like middle school. I mean,
Oh wow.
there wasn't anything special about it. I just watched it and I enjoyed it. That's why I recommended it to Josh. But when I found out that they were going to be doing a live action version of it, I was very apprehensive just because, most anime movies don't do well.
Mm-hmm.
Or like at least live action adaptations. And then I heard that they were casting Willem Dafoe as Ryuk, and I'm like, that is perfection. This movie is going to be perfect. Nothing is going to go wrong.
Yep.
And then I watched it.
Well, see, I had a different reaction because, again, like I said, I had never seen like anything beforehand, but I did know of it, and I loved the concept.
Yep.
The concept is genius, I think.
Absolutely.
Just showing what you can get out of simplicity. If you could write into a notebook and somebody would die, would you do it? Where I was actually one of the few people that was excited about it at the time, because this may be going back for for you guys. You may not even remember. If you do, you'll share my pain. I remember when it was announced that Shane Black was going to co-write and direct the film.
Oh, man, what we could have had.
It was going to be a co-written thing with him and Anthony Bagarazzi, who I believe who helped him out on The Nice Guys as a co-writer. So, I'm knee deep in my Shane Black stuff. I still am because, Predator aside, he's an amazing screenwriter, and he's growing into his own as a director.
Oh yeah.
So seeing him with this general concept, I'm like, that's it. Perfect.
Yep.
And then, he left the project, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this now. But then Willem Dafoe gets cast. It's like, okay, cool. And then I hear about Nat Wolff, and I never really cared for Nat Wolff in general, but I'm like, well, okay, looking at the anime side by side, he could pass as an American version of this milquetoast kid. Let's see where it goes. And here we are.
Yeah. I like Crystal said, in my opinion, it's like video game movies. A lot of times they don't choose to adapt things correctly. Video game movies, what they commonly do is they'll go, hey, we want to do a video game movie. Cool. What are some video games that are 5 hours long that we could realistically crunch into a 2-hour movie? No, we were thinking of doing this one that's 300 hours long and that we couldn't possibly fit in 7 movies, but we're going to do it in 1. How about we don't do that? And then they do it anyway. And like, this is one of the things where it's like, realistically, in a trilogy, you could have done this. But in my opinion, there are a few things where if you're going to do it live action, and you could get away with doing it cheaply because the only thing you have to CGI is the deaths in Ryuk was Death Note.
Yeah.
Pretty cheap. All it is psychological, so you don't got to have a lot of out-of-the-way stunts. You could pull a lot away with CGI. And Ryuk did look good. So I was quite excited. And again, like I said, it's Willem Dafoe. Hearing the English voice actor for Ryuk and like listening to the stupid stuff that he did, like in the show, How far are you two before I say something? Or Josh, did you finish it?
Oh, in the show? Yeah.
We finished it.
Okay, good. There's the scene where I can't remember the agent's name, but he's following that agent down the road and walking with her when her husband just got killed, and Ryuk is laughing at him because he writes her name down in the death note and he knows it's an alias and it's not gonna work, so he thinks it's hilarious. Like, I'm like, that's Willem Dafoe. I could just picture him as like Serpico, but like an asshole. I'm like, that's perfect.
It is.
Just like, it's awesome. Imagine full on Willem Dafoe, like in Boondock Saints, but as an evil death god. That's just, I'm like, take my money, all of it. My subscriptions for years.
You're making me so fucking sad now.
Yeah. And then they're like, it's going to be a movie. I'm like, all right, okay. And then I knew legit nothing about Lakeith Stanfield or Nat Wolff, so I was like, all right, it's whatever. And then, yeah, we got the movie. I used to defend this a little bit around people. And then, how far did both of you guys get in the movie before you said, fuck this movie? Because apparently Josh said I made it the longest.
I was about the 10-minute mark when I said, fuck this.
How far were you, Crystal?
Probably less than that. Probably like 5-minute mark. It was the scene where he confronts the bullies.
Oh
yeah. I'm like, no.
Oh
no.
God.
Yep.
How far were you, Brock?
I made it to the. Oh, so what's that? Oh, you can't see this. Oh, okay, but do you want to?
Yeah, that's
what?
20 minutes in. I lasted longer than all of you.
Where did you get to?
For me, it was around the time L finally comes into the picture.
Okay.
Because that was me back then, and even now, because I'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay, yeah. Like, for reference, Mike, have you seen the anime or have you still only watched the movie?
I still only watched the movie. I haven't gone back to the end.
Okay, slight spoiler. I'm going to tell you how L reveals himself and like finally shows up, and it's really, really. They do something similar in here.
No, it's a spit in the face of how perfect that scene is.
There's a scene where I don't remember exactly how he's watching the broadcast, but he's watching a broadcast and they take this villain, this hardened criminal up there, and they have him presenting as if he's L. He gives this dude's name and sends it out and goes on this talk, like, I don't know it word for word because I probably haven't watched it in like 4 years, but he has this big thing about how he goes in depth about how he's going to find Kira and how he's going to do all this, and he openly says his name out loud and does this and that, and then Kira offs him and kills him. And then he goes, well, thank you. That was actually criminal such and such and so away. And now we figured out on the spot that he's in Japan and that he has to have the person's name and face because that was only broadcasted inside Japan, and he did not have the person's proper naming and all that. Go ahead. You remember it better than me. Go ahead.
Not only was it only broadcasted in Japan, it was only broadcasted in a specific province in Japan.
There we go. So he needle pointed him. It was awesome. Those two play such mental chess in that freaking. Oh,
and the best thing about that moment that I found out from watching the show is that I love it because L, he still doesn't reveal his full face, even though you see it in the anime opening. But even then, you don't see his face until I want to say a good 10 episodes in.
Yeah,
give or take. So it's like
at least.
And even when he reveals that, after the guy's dead live on TV, everybody's horrified. It just cuts to a screen, and he's like, "Oh my god, I genuinely didn't think that would work, but okay, the hunch is correct."
Yep. He gets him so bad, and gets so fucking pissed.
See, I think the biggest part about that scene was just how quickly. Because the whole thing is you wonder, what, maybe he is doing a good thing because he's only killing criminals, but in a split second, because this guy Lindell Taylor
Lindell
was
Taylor,
saying
that's
like,
what it
yeah,
was.
he was saying like, oh well, what you're doing is evil and wrong. He didn't even think that this guy was a criminal. He just said, you're against me, you're dead.
Yep.
Yeah, and it just immediately shows this guy's the bad guy. What he's doing is wrong.
Yeah, that is one thing whenever I hear people talk about Death Note, if I hear genuine, and I mean genuine, like interest in how Light was the protagonist in that anime, I get terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he is an incel through and through.
That is the equivalent of ironic. I think it's kind of ironic, but also fitting. It's kind of the equivalent of how people sometimes look at Rorschach as the real hero of Watchmen, and it's like,
Tell me you
Is
haven't
he
read
really?
Watchmen
Is he
without
though?
telling me you haven't read Watchmen.
All right, so that's what I wanted to get through before we got to rip this bitch apart. So, hey guys, do you like moody teenagers in high school? Because I think they wanted to tell you were going to have moody teenagers in high school.
boy, don't I? And I was in fact a moody teenager.
I don't think this moody. Not like fucking sexy and on the cheerleading squad and smoking a cigarette. Oh, like yeah, what?
Okay, I have to. I have probably a very unique perspective when going into the movie originally.
Okay.
And I think I've told this in the past. If not on the podcast on Renegade Pop Culture, I'm almost positive I've mentioned it at least in private. My initial exposure to Death Note, like I said, was all of that, like, you know, seeing it in the culture and everything. But it was actually also a dare. Because when I found out that Shane Black stepped away from Death Note, I was so upset. And so, when everything was going on, I was a freshman in high school when the movie was starting to more or less come together. But I didn't like how it was coming out. Like, again, you get rid of Shane Black, it's like, where do you go?
Yeah.
So I remember a couple friends of mine, one of whom was a major weeb, and the other who was a very close friend of mine, but she always roasted me for everything that I did. They said, why don't you try making a Death Note movie? And I personally challenged myself, do not watch the anime, but read the rules of the Death Note and come up with your own story. So that way we don't have to worry about like accuracy and everything. And I'm mentioning this because a lot of the stuff that I came up with as a freshman, I kind of thought they were going to do here. Mm-hmm. I remember I had it where, like, for Americans, for Shinigami, they just looked like men in business suits because Americans lack the imagination to think of like a demon, but in the shadows you could see like their demon form and everything.
Okay.
And it was about two friends.
That actually sounds pretty cool.
And it was about two friends that discovered the Death Note in high school, and they start using it. And of course, it would lead to another person having a Death Note as well, and it would be this kind of cat and mouse thing between the three of them. And there's like animosity growing between the two friends. And I never finished it. It was a terrible script. It was very poorly written. I can admit that about myself at the time. The dialogue was cringe. One of those, I tried to be like Quentin Tarantino, but, you know, it's...
Few people can be Quentin.
Few people can be Quentin, but there was one thing that I really loved in that script that I would still want to revive at some point. Netflix, if you're hearing that, please give me a call. But it was this idea in the script where, of the two friends, it was a guy and a girl, and the halfway point revealed that the main character, the guy, he actually wrote his female friend's abusive father in the Death Note, and he dies. And while she's pleased, she starts to question whether or not she has a question of whether or not he had written her name in the Death Note, because they started to grow a little bit apart. Now, I squandered that as a kid because I immediately had him confess to it because, you know, friendship. But at the same time, that's my experience with Death Note, trying to dip into that world, trying to think of how you could adapt it for America. And I say all this because, Jesus Christ, I have this belief with cross-cultural remakes. When people get upset about an Americanized remake of like a foreign film or an anime or something like that, I'm not so against it because I think there is potential to change things up and do social commentary. Like, big example right now is the Train to Busan remake. It's being named Escape to New York or Train to New York. I think that's perfectly fine, though I understand the apprehension.
Yeah.
But you have stuff like the Old Boy remake, where they literally just took the exact same story, exact same plot beats and everything, exact same locations, but it's in Louisiana. And it's like, no, there's so much potential wasted there. And with Death Note, I think there could be something to be said there about kind of how more violent Americans are.
Mm-hmm.
And especially just, again, playing up the culture of like, death and high schoolers and everything. And I don't even mind the change of making Light a horny teenager, which, again, we'll get to that in a second. But everything about this feels like they tried to Americanize the wrong things. And it just makes it even more misguided. I had no experience with the anime, and I left the movie frustrated when I first watched it. And then I watched it again for this, and I came away more angry at the wasted potential for what this movie could have been.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. And what got wrecked, what I thought the movie was going to be, honestly, because in my head, I thought, okay, I'm a little irritated at the doing the homework thing, but it's like, it's whatever. They're trying to show that Light's smart. Okay, I get it. And then, like, even when I watched the anime, I was like, man, you took a little too quickly to be a murdering psychopath. Like, it took 5 minutes. So I was like, all right, maybe they're going to be like, this is a smart kid. And then Ryuk goes, he's a smart kid, but I think there's a little bit of wiggle room for manipulation there. And he just turns some knobs, and eventually he takes the smarts out of that kid and then turns them into what, Light actually is. A well-adjusted wannabe murder god that can handle some stuff and is a force to be reckoned with through manipulation. That's fine. We just gotta wait a little bit. But, there you go. And you kind of play with that, and then by the end of this movie, if they were going to do a trilogy, he's actually like Light. He's there. He's got Misa or Mia in this one. I don't know why you can't have her named Misa, but you still have him named Light.
Yeah.
I don't really understand that. Although there is a note about Mia's character, how according to the director, it's less that she's inspired by Misa from the manga, but more is like, more that she becomes the more psychopathic side of Light.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I didn't know if they were trying to bring that home or not. It was really subtle.
I mean, I kind of picked up on that. And no, because I literally at the end of it, I was like, it felt like Mia was more like Light than Light was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you took Light. The entire film was like, wait, hold on, man. All of a sudden, now we murdered some people that might not have deserved it. I'm like, okay, that was where the bricks in this house start to get just smashed away. Where it's like, okay, cool. Convicted people you're sentencing to death. Cool. Do you not think that any of those trials were fixed, or maybe they weren't done correctly? But you're like, no, wait, those people said he did that. Nah, I can't do that. That's against my rules. Excuse me? One more time?
The rules
Excuse me?
are very flimsy in this version.
And also, cool, calm, collective. The part in the detention made my roommate's brother want to walk out of the house. When you have him meet Ryuk in the anime, he's calm, cool, and collected, and he's like, all right, I've heard of Shinigami before. He meets him.
I will defend that
I get
little bit because, like, the thing is, like, watching, like, when I first watched it, I only had a rough idea of what light was like. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is not good. But then watching the anime, I got the impression that light was incredibly pathetic. Like in my mind, like when you see like the flourishes that everybody makes fun of with like extreme close-ups and it's like handheld and the camera sweeps and everything, that's what Light sees himself as in his head. And the show, I think, goes out of its way to show like, hey, don't think like this guy. He's a loser. He's a psychopathic loser. And him screaming like that, screaming his head off like a little bitch, I think was at least a good way of showing, hey, so he's going to end up like a bad guy. But remember, this is who's going to become a murderer later on.
Yeah.
That said,
I always laugh that that's the one that turns most people off.
That said, it's still hilarious though, and I understand.
Yeah. I think just I don't know if you guys picked up on this. This is kind of changing the subject, but something that really, really ticked me off is that the scene where he's like first like really looking through the Death Note.
He's like and stuff.
What? Through
the rules and stuff.
Yeah, no, and then he like turns to the back of the book and he sees like some notes saying like don't trust Ryuk and Ryuk.
Yeah.
But it says it there. Don't trust Ryuk in the Death Note. And then later on we hear Ryuk say the farthest that anybody's gotten in is 2 letters.
Yeah.
I'm like, but somebody already spelled your name and it's in the book. Why are you still alive? First of all, that's not supposed to work. That's not supposed to work. You can't kill a Shinigami by putting their name in the book. You can't do that. And then Ryuk is saying it as if like that would be actually a threat and he kills people if they try it.
Yeah. That was one of the weird things where it's like another thing that had my roommate wanting to explode was their changing of the rules. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, some are a little bit different, but it literally rewrites people at certain points. And yeah, it was like, don't worry. If you don't write it in the index or the commons, you won't get killed. As long as you write it in the center, then you're dead.
Sure.
I don't know. But I get your frustration. A lot of that shit didn't make sense. We'll get that towards the end with that fucking Ferris wheel scene, because oh my god.
Oh yeah, the Ferris wheel is
Okay, so Mike, like in general, because like you said, you haven't seen like the anime all the way through. Give me full thoughts. I want to know your full thoughts.
Full thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, like
honestly, this just kind of feels like the worst example of like CW trash. And trust me, I know. I've seen a lot of CW trash.
You are such a masochist. I think it more and more every day.
But that's really about the extent of my thoughts on this. And it really hurts because I know everyone in this movie can do and has done better elsewhere. Adam Wingard is one of my favorite new directors.
He did Godzilla versus Kong, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, he did that, and he did The Guest, which is one of the classics of the 2010s.
And Lakeith Stanfield, oh my god,
Lakeith Stanfield is terrific, and some of the positives I have for this is that he gives probably not including Defoe, who is absolutely perfect and untouchable. Lakeith Stanfield does the best with the material, despite the material being garbage. But outside of like that, pretty much nothing works.
No, and
to the point that I don't even believe that that Nat Turner and Shea Wiggum are father and son. They are like completely different people.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong there. That is very. That was something else. And like, it's one thing that would have irritated you more, Mike. And again, I'm okay with changes. Is like if you knew how strict the rules of that Death Note are in the anime, that it's like you have to do things a certain way. It just doesn't work this way to make sure that the Death Gods get what they want. Because like one thing they don't show in here that they show in the anime is that Death Gods are literally just bored. They sit in this other dimension and just pal around, and then Ryuk gets bored and just drops the Death Note at Light School to see what he's gonna do.
Which is another thing, like the one major thing that Ryuk says is, I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to move against you. I am just here to watch. You are my entertainment. I am not going to ever help you.
Yep.
And then we move to the movie where he's like goading him on, like, do it. And like,
hey kid, you see this book? Look, you see that bully is such an asshole, right? Why don't you go ahead and write his name? Just write it, see what happens, you know? It's just like
you just did the perfect impersonation of the guy who tries to sell Obi-Wan death sticks.
I'll say this: like the one thing I will recommend to watch if you're gonna watch the Netflix movie, watch it drunk. I have a drink right here, especially for this, and you can try it at home, fellow audience. It's called a Gingy Ito.
I coined the name.
Get ginger ale or ginger beer, and then put in a double shot of sake of your choice. I have apple sake. Tastes like manzanita, like apple soda.
Nice.
And it's funny you mentioned the death sticks, because I was blown out of my ass. What is it with discovering that some of my favorite cinematographers did trash movies once in a while?
Oh God, who did this one?
David Tattersall. He's the cinematographer of the Star Wars prequels and The Green Mile.
Oh.
Ooh, ow, that hurts.
Ow.
Also, he did Gulliver's Travels.
Oh
The
my
world's
God.
ugly boss.
What's wrong with I can't even. So I want to know, like, okay, Mike, what do you think could have made the movie better? Like, you don't have a lot of familiarity with how the story plays out in the show?
It's tough because
It's hard to avoid spoilers.
Doing a straight adaptation of the manga would require this to be longer than a single film, and B, probably just requires more confidence in making the adaptational changes. Because if you're explicitly setting this in America, then you kind of have to. How should I put this? You have to Americanize everything, and you have to actually commit to it. You like this. The problem with this movie is it kind of feels like a half measure by including Shinigami, and by like incorporating Japan in like the plot. But I can also kind of see where they were going for with Light's alias, but again, they clearly only did that as a half measure and not really committing to actually localizing the story.
That one thing, I'm on the other side of the fence as a lot of people. I actually think keeping the Kira thing was one of the smartest moves the movie makes, in my opinion,
Hmm.
because in the film it's Kira killer. Makes sense. Here, it's the same thing, but he's doing this hoping it's going to make him think that no white boy from the middle of Seattle is doing this.
Yeah, no,
So
I
I get it a little.
I understand like his thought process in universe. It's just it feels like it doesn't feel like an idea that came organically.
Do you think they should have not came up with a name?
Or maybe come up with a name that's tough. I would say maybe come up with like maybe just come up with like a name that's like, I don't know, completely distant from the source material. I don't know. It's a tough one.
How about the Bye Bye Man?
Stop.
No.
The Unaliver.
The XYZ murderer.
Or David Cage. But
No.
yeah. One thing I think, and I think Crystal will want to go into this too, is I want to talk about just how stupid this movie gets towards the end. And not just the misunderstanding of the Death Note, them misunderstanding how they even said the Death Note works in their own rules in this film.
Oh boy.
Crystal in particular has a lot to say about L.
Where do you want to start, Crystal?
Well, I'd say let's start with L.
Okay.
Because I feel like Lakeith Stanfield really could have nailed this role if it was the right role. If he was actually playing L and not some angry dude. And then the stuff with Watari. Oh, the stuff with Watari.
Mike, do you know what Watari normally looks like?
Do you have a picture?
He looks like Alfred.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, pull up a picture if you can.
Hold on. Keep talking, Crystal.
You guys remember the whole plot point where his name is just Watari?
Yeah, they never got his last name. That pissed me
Yeah.
off.
They
You have
never
to have
got
his
his
full
last
name.
name. So is his name literally just Watari? That's it.
Oh my god, I forgot just how opposite he looks. This
That's
is
a,
terrible.
that's a joke I still love from the Cosmonaut Variety Hour video that he did. He lifted a clip from Superbad where it's Michael Cera talking to Mick Love. He's like, "One name? Who are you, Seal?"
Okay, Mike. So you saw sexy himbo Watari in Death Note. Now, tell me, did they adapt it correctly?
Not even a little bit.
God, you can see them both side by side there.
Oh my god.
Oh, it hurts. Oh, it hurts.
It's like they didn't even try.
Oh, it hurts.
And then everything with L, he's just way too angry to be L.
And how he just jumps to conclusions.
Yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah, like there I don't remember exactly what it was, but there were genuinely points where I was like, how did you come to that conclusion? Because I mean, several times in the anime, you're like, well, how did you figure that out? And then they spell it out, like this and this and this, like brought out everything together. And then you think, well, yeah, that makes sense once it's explained to me. And then you think, wow, these characters are really smart because they're able to come to these conclusions that I couldn't. But in the movie, you're like, that just doesn't make any sense. Like those things don't match. They don't intersect at any point. How did you come to that conclusion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how they start setting up like stuff with Watari is ridiculous. they give him in there, and he's like, "Okay, here's your plot line. I'm gonna write in this notebook. I'm gonna write in this notebook that by blank and blank a time on Thursday, you're gonna die. But until then, I'm gonna have you attempt to do these 16 things." That's not how that fucking works.
Nope.
You write how he's going to die, and then when he's like, "I didn't find it. All right, talk to me. What's going on?" Now you just have a telepathic mind meld link with Watery where you could just make him say whatever you want. I'm like, did you forget what the show was?
Yeah, like, and then thinking about the Ferris wheel. One of the biggest rules in there is you cannot make the death like with outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, that was the rule. Like the
Yep.
death has to be plausible. So, and I love the way they they mention it in towards the end, like, oh, and the Ferris wheel just like it explicitly broke down.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works.
It wouldn't have done that.
It wouldn't have done that. And there's also points where leading up to that, it's even stupider. But at that moment, he writes in the death note where the death note's going to fall. Sorry, writers. I don't remember you saying, "Oh, by the way, I affect reality and where things fall now."
Yeah, you can't change the laws of physics.
She's going to fall there. I, who am not being killed, am going to fall here because somehow I can affect myself in this situation.
Even though all objects are falling from one point, they're all falling from this one point off the edge of the Ferris wheel. Wouldn't they all just fall down to the same spot?
Oh, and don't worry.
Randomly, a gust of wind.
The name with the part with his name on it inexplicably will fall and burn on the way down. Only if she takes the book from me. Crystal, tell me one time that there was a conditional death in the original anime.
Once the name is written, they will die.
Yes. It doesn't fucking work that way.
Because they'll die. No. Once you write it, they're gone.
Yes. And it's
so just to be clear, the whole nonsense about if you burn the name, you're spared. That was made up for the movie.
Yeah, that one I'm okay with if it's a one-time thing. That was the one change where I was like, okay, but it's not like, oh nope, sorry, didn't want that one, and you can just burn everyone. It's like the one-time use thing. But tell me, everyone here, you're hoping this girl doesn't backstab you and doesn't take the book. You're going to leave up to chance that hoping the bullshit you just took 20 minutes writing this novel in this book, that she takes it and that the page falls into a fucking tire fire, that it goes down, and you weren't going to just burn your name before you gave the book to her?
Well, I think
this guy did not think things through.
Page.
Oh yeah. It's because she had the pages in her book, in her algebra book or something like that.
It was her calculus book.
Calculus, yeah. So that is one thing that I do like that they kept from the anime. Although I wish the movie could have utilized it a little bit more. But yeah, you can literally take pages out and just write them in. But in the anime, they take it a step forward, because in the anime, when Light's like really deep into like deep in the police investigation, he has a watch and he has like a secret compartment that he pulls out.
He pulls the little knob on the edge of the watch like 4 times within like a second,
and like it pulls it out, and there's a little piece, like a little scrap of a notebook paper from the Death Note in there, and he just has it there like in case he doesn't have like a pen.
He has like a needle in it too, so he can prick his finger and then write it in blood.
Yeah, there is a lot of, I want to call it happy horse shit that happens in that anime, but they at least explain what it does. Like, Mike, there's literally a moment in that anime where 3 characters stand in a circle and just pass death notes to each other to reset rules.
Yeah.
And they explain it.
But it works because they at least take the time, like, as they're doing it, like, look, all right, we're going to go ahead and do this. Do. What happened? Well, now they got the book. Now, do. Now I don't have the book. Do. Here we are.
Yeah.
And Like, I'm not about to say that the anime is religious.
The one that really ticked me off, one rule that they changed was that now only the owner of the Death Note can see the Shinigami.
Yeah, it was if you just touched it, right?
You just have to touch. You just had to touch it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Did you know about that, Mike?
I actually didn't. I thought it was just like only the owner can see the.
That's the thing that they changed because they're like, again, watching the movie and
Right
then
back,
going
you
to
guys.
the anime, like there's so many awesome things that they add, like that in the anime that they did. Like, for one thing, in the anime they play up on that, the fact that if you touch the Death Note, you will see him. So like Light and Misa, they see Ryuk and they have full on conversations, and I was so pissed off watching it because there's bits where Light and Mia and Ryuk are in the same shot, and it's like, my God, play up on that. But there's a bit in the anime where Light is being pursued by a secret agent, and he knows that he's being pursued, and he's trying to get this guy's fucking name written down. So he stages a robbery, like a hijacking, on the bus that he's in, and he knows that the police officer, like the secret agent, is right behind him. He has a guy come into the bus,
like hijack the bus,
hijacking it, and he goes to Light, and he picks up the book, just like in a thing, because he thinks, oh, he's passing notes. Then he looks over
because like Light takes a second, like when the hijacking is happening, he's like,
he was like, wait,
yeah, he's like,
how
no,
come you're
I'm
talking
gonna
with
do
me?
something, like I'm gonna do something about it. And then he like goes to like get up and like be a hero, but of course the FBI agent's like, no, don't do that, and then you're gonna get yourself killed.
And then
like,
Light
I'm an
says,
FBI agent, I'll help you. And he's like, how can I know for sure? And he's like, here's my ID and everything. And he's like, all right, I got you there.
He's like, I got you. But then as he says that, the hijacker sees him like with the notebook, and he's like, you see you're passing notes, huh? Give me that. And he looks up, sees Ryuk on the bus, starts freaking the hell out, and Ryuk's like, what's going on? How come he, like, why did you let him touch the book? And then the hijacker runs out of the bus trying to escape, and he gets run over. And it's revealed that Light wrote down in the book he will get onto the bus, hijack it, and then he will have a hallucination that will then cause him to run out and get hit by a car.
Wow, that's smart.
That's smart.
Yeah, and then he got the FBI's name and his face, and then killed him.
It's again just adding that into the film. Like, I imagine it's because they probably didn't want to, like, maybe Willem Dafoe was too expensive.
Maybe because
you
only see Ryuk in the film a handful of scenes.
And it's so frustrating because if you look on Netflix now, he's the driving advertisement. He's got first billing.
What do you mean?
Like, if you were to go on Netflix right now and look up the Death Note movie, the very first name in the starring is
starring
Willem
Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, and then Lakeith Stanfield, and then Nat Wolff.
And what's funny about that is since this movie has been released, Nat's brother Alex has become a much better actor than Nat,
Yeah.
and B
There we
is
go.
probably a lot more well known because he's been working with like high profile directors, whereas with Nat, this might be his the most exposure he's gotten, and not in a good way.
No.
And this brings up something I want to mention real quick. And it's a problem I have with the Cowboy Bebop Netflix series, which I will go on record, I actually do like it. It's not the original. nothing is. But as a remix, I love it for what it is. And later on in the future, I'll get into that maybe on the podcast. But there is a thing that I absolutely hate when it comes to Americanizing an anime, where they feel the need to curse every 15 seconds. Like I'm guilty of it in this podcast. I've been saying in this episode, I've been saying a few fucks here and there, but it's like I try my best not to say it all the time, but it's like the second they get the green light to set it in the red, white, and blue, they're like, okay, cursing, we're a go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the cursing in this movie just feels kind of forced.
A lot of stuff feels kind of forced. Like Josh mentioned it earlier. There's a thing in this where it's kind of like they try to show bonding between Mia and Light, and like again, they don't say that she's exactly a quote unquote copy of Misa, but like in the other thing, why it worked, why you had a follower, is because she had experience with this. You find out she's a Death Note user in the other one. Sorry that I'm spoiling a lot of stuff, Mike, but it's kind of
it's all right.
But
maybe we should put a disclaimer before this.
I mean, Death Note this anime came out in 2006, and
that's true.
And then you have the movie came out. Everybody either saw it or already knew they're not going to watch it.
But like, she's a Death Note user, and she understands how this is, and she worships Light. And in the anime, Light could not care if he even looked at a woman for his entire life. So he uses her. In here, they kind of flip that.
Yeah. Except Light is useless in this because another aspect in the anime is that there's a deal that you can make with a Shinigami where they'll give you their eyes, and you'll be able to, just by looking at anybody's face, see their name and how much life they have left.
Isn't it if you give up half your life?
Yes, you have to give up half your lifespan for it.
Okay, got it.
But you'll be able to see their name and how much life they have left.
Yeah.
And also, if the person that you're looking at is a Death Note user, you won't be able to see their lifespan.
Yeah.
But
and you can see their name above their head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see their name above their head, which is all that Light needs. All that Light needs is to get Misa to see L, and then he has his name.
Yep.
So that's why Light even uses her. Otherwise, he would have just gotten rid of her. But because she has that, then that's why she's useful, and that's why Light in the movie is completely useless. He's just like, well, I don't know.
The worst part is he has no backbone.
Yeah,
he
really doesn't.
Like, my name in this thing is The Light is a Simp Variety Hour, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
He bends over backwards so much for Mia. The only time that he remotely is like, oh, come on, knock it off, is when Mia's like, yo, we should kill your dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's his only line to cross. Everything else is like, oh yeah, you want to kill this person? Yeah, go ahead.
It's not that line to cross though, Mike. What are 3 magical words that will make you forgive someone wanting to murder your dad?
Go ahead. Say
I love you.
I love you.
That's all she says. And then they go do murder porn, which is what I consider their relationship to be. Hey, babe, we should go like make out, fondle ourselves a little, and then like commit murder. Because, nothing gets me rock hard like murder.
Oh, and
We're
also just the way she says "I love you." It's very nonchalant. Just, oh, by the way, I love you.
And he's just like, you do?
Oh well, that changes everything.
A woman's gonna touch me?
He suddenly turns into Haley Joel Osment doing voice recording for Sora in the voice booth. A broken frog.
No.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty good.
Right? Like his demeanor just changes from "my God, I'm so stressed" to "awesome, let's go kill people."
Well, yeah, and that was she said "I love you" 10 seconds after. Hey, please forgive me. It was heat of the moment. I didn't mean it when I said we should kill your dad.
Bullshit.
I think
If I could take it back, I would.
I think that
Shut the hell up.
I think the biggest problem with this movie is just the biggest aspect of the anime is just the like all of the reveals, like all of the well, I was 5 steps ahead of you. Well, I was 5 steps ahead of you, and just all of those moments where they do the big reveal where, oh, well, this was all planned out and everything that you've been confused about for a few episodes. This is why it's been happening, and this is why it's so smart.
Like
You get none of that in the movie. None of that.
Like there's. I'm not about to say that the anime is perfect.
No, far from it.
But I understand why it's so influential and why people hold it in such reverence. Because as stupid as I think it gets later on, I think after, again, spoilers, Mike, I'm sorry. But in the anime, they kill L. And it's an intense moment. It's chaotic, but it's like, oh my God, everything came together.
Yep.
But the problem is there's still like 10 episodes left of the series.
Yeah.
So I heard that was when the show takes a turn.
Because then you get Mellow and Near?
Mellow and
Near.
Yeah, and
Near.
it's not particularly the best, truth be told, but the ending is one of the most satisfying things.
Yeah, wait. That was one thing that I didn't. Another thing that I hated about the movie is that they basically turned L into Mellow.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
not
Oh
wrong.
my God.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I never thought about that till you just said it, but wow, you're not wrong.
Okay, so you know about Mellow and Near, Mike?
Probably not.
Vaguely.
So the thing is, L was like a prodigy at like this school of like gifted mutants or whatever the fuck. And you know, they're literally bred. They literally take in these orphans to make the world's greatest detectives.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine, I guess. But then they decided to make in the anime. What they do is they have L kind of as the star pupil or something like that, but it's a secret school. Nobody even knows about it. But there's like 2 proteges that he has, named Mellow and Near, but obviously it's not their real names. And they hear that L is dead. So Mellow is ironically not Mellow. He's kind of an overly emotional, he's the emotional side of L, where, you know, he thinks with emotion first, and he's able to pick up kind of holistically and everything. But then there's Near, who's the more calculated side of L. And he's very smart, but the problem is he lacks the emotional connection to, you know, really piece everything together. And they make a thing in the anime like, you two could work wonders if you solve the case together, but, you know, they're like oil and water. They don't mix. So Mellow goes his separate ways and becomes a Backstreet Boy, and, you know,
Kind of a psychopath.
and then you have Near, who's trying to pick up where L left off. And yeah, it sounds kind of as messy as I'm explaining it. Like it pays off, but it's also like
A really cheesy payoff, and it kind of cheapens the whole show. But it's still really good.
That last scene.
Yes,
Yeah,
the last
yeah,
scene where that's basically the Walter White moment of Death Note, where
It's
everything
so good.
comes together, and you know that at the end of this, Light isn't getting out of it. But at the same time, it's how he goes out.
Yes.
And yeah.
Getting goosebumps. Just think like the sunlight and the Ryuk's lines and it's so good.
So again, like I said, the show isn't perfect. It has its peaks and valleys, but the highs are really high that I can overlook stuff like the story arc where they face off against some Wall Street dudes, or
Yeah.
there's a bit where Light loses his memory again because it's explained in the Notebook, but they have the core concept. And there are bits in the movie where, as much as I hate the movie, I think it matches the tone at some points. There's the bit where I thought this is straight from the anime in a good way, upon reflection, is right after Light realizes that Mia has been using the Notebook, is piecing everything together, is realizing, oh my God, she's been playing me. And it's right as, I believe, Take My Breath Away starts playing, and he's going into the gym.
Yeah.
And, there's like the red light from the very back in the hallway just kind of illuminating right as Light walks into the gym.
And it works so well because it's so reminiscent of all of those really anime moments in the show where like everything like freezes and then they turn like red and white or like blue and white and like really dramatic lighting and they're thinking in their head. Yeah.
And then it cuts to Mia as she's dancing with some random schmo. And I think it's intentional where every other face is out of focus, or the guy that she's dancing with, his face is turned away, but Mia looks straight at the camera. And then it punches in closer on Light. There's no dialogue for that little bit, but it's just like everything that is being said right there is perfect. And it's like, that's the one moment where the movie comes close to capturing what Death Note is. Cheesy melodrama, but at the same time impactful visuals.
Yep. And I think that's the one time where I actually saw Adam Wingard like showing his style.
Yep.
Because throughout like the rest of the film, he kind of felt like a hired gun. Yeah. But that was like the one time where like his style got to shine through.
Everything there, I can feel a voice desperate to break out, and I want to think that maybe that's like one of the first things that they shot.
Could be.
I want to think that maybe that was like one of the first things that they shot, because everything in the gymnasium feels so slick and cool compared to the rest of the movie.
The stuff in the gymnasium, it feels the most like the director of The Guest or You're Next.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have to ask, is there stuff that in this context that A, you're glad they didn't attempt, or B, you wish they would have attempted? And there's two scenes that the sadist in me wish they would have tried to attempt. Is one, the potato chip scene. Mike, if you want to look it up and look up the English.
I know about the potato chip scene.
And two is the, I don't know if intentional, but slightly homoerotic foot washing scene between Light and L.
Yeah. That was a whole missed opportunity, having L and Light in general being like kind of growing a faux brotherhood.
Yeah. They right away hate each other. There's no chance.
Yeah, they right away hate each other. Elle comes in like, hey, fuckface, I know that you're Kira. And Light's just like, what are you talking about? Dude, we literally just met. It's like, no. I know you're Kira, and I'm going to catch you. I'm going to catch you, so, good luck, kid. And Light's like, so let's say for the sake of argument, I am Kira. It's like, no, conversation ends right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what they really needed? They needed that scene from Heat.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, they have like multiple scenes like that in the anime.
They do. Like when he reveals himself for real, when they're at that like conference thing in that meeting room, and they try to pull that off with that scene in the cafe, but they just don't nail it.
They don't earn it is the problem.
Yeah.
Like in the anime, there's that perfect scene where Elle just shows up at Light's college, and he just
high school. It was like a graduation ceremony or something.
I thought he was in college.
I just remember there's rows of chairs, and it was at the school. I don't remember exactly what level.
And he just immediately comes up And you see him and it's like, oh my god, Light, he's like right there. And then L just comes in and he's just like, Light Yagami, it's very nice to meet you. I want you to know I'm L. And just lays it all out right then and there. And Light's like, what is he doing?
Yep.
But like by doing that, he kind of trapped him. And like you can't move now. You can't move now because if you do,
oh no!
And they go into a friendship where the entire time, L never gets off his case. He's like, "No, I know who you are. It's gonna take me a little bit before I have proof and I can acquit you. But no, I just know you are, and sure, we can be friends. We live and have some talks in common. But no, I know who you are." And he's kind about it the whole time. He's like nice to him.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how they pull it off.
Like there's so many great moments in the anime, like thinking, like watching it now, because I remember thinking, watching the movie initially, I was thinking, is this really what it's like in the anime? Is there like a big show off at a Ferris wheel? And oddly enough, like the chase scene with L and Light and the whole stuff at the Ferris wheel is tailor-made for the movie. And that's so surprising because there's so many other things in the anime that are way more over the top, but yet they feel more fitting.
Yep. Because they're aware of their own setting. That's one thing that, especially in an anime, that makes it work. If it can be so stupid, but if it doesn't seem stupid compared to the other stupid that's already been there, it's not stupid. If something like this has happened, you're like, no, like they've already established stuff like this is there. They've established that this kid is 9,000 types of crazy, so that's not out of the ordinary. Yeah. And that's one thing that I felt the movie had a giant problem with, where it's kind of like, we don't know what we want the balance to be.
Yeah, like it feels like this movie tries a little bit too hard to take itself seriously, but also the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, it kind of go like in level of seriousness. It kind of goes from like The Godfather to Megan's Body at points, and it feels like it was directed by different people at different points. Honest to God, at certain times it does. Mm-hmm. Tone, line deliveries, everything.
Even Shea Wigham's hair is like,
yeah,
it doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yep. Now, one thing I wanted to ask, because we're getting towards the end here, and we've kind of said what we want to say. We've mentioned some things that they did right, and there's some things for how I feel they should have handled it, and we've kind of talked about that. One thing that honestly, as dumb as this movie was, if they would have made L be a certified psycho and like fixed him a little with like a time jump to where he's gotten more crazed and kind of like zeroed in what he wants to be now that Mia's away and he's not, just trying to get laid as much as he can, and you let L cool down a little, the fact that in Mike, again, sorry, spoiler, his dad in the anime never finds out that he's Kira. He dies thinking that he's not Kira. One thing I thought was kind of weird, and I was excited, actually, was the fact that how does this story go if the dad knows he's Kira and tries his hardest to not just turn his son in?
I kind of was hoping that would have been the case from like the very beginning. But again, like a lot of things in this movie, they never really commit.
Yeah. It was the coolest idea they came up with, because there ain't a thing close to that, if my knowledge from the anime, where there's just like some person that could have quit him and any second, but just doesn't, because of love and respect for him. Like L knew who he was, just didn't have the adequate proof to turn him in. His dad does. I was really excited about that. And they said for years, he's like, nope, a sequel's coming. I'm like, no, it's not. But yeah, Is there any way, I'll leave it to people that have, again, I have a channel where we review movies and I talk about a lot of stuff. I have not seen near the amount of movies or have the experience of talking to different things as these guys. Is there anything based off this ending where you honest thought, chuck a Hail Mary, they could have fixed it in kind of grooved out the bumps, kind of smoothed everything out, and actually landed a sequel properly?
I'm trying to think.
It'll be interesting coming from a person who hasn't seen it and a person who has seen the anime, or two that have, I should say.
I think so. I think that the biggest, I guess, thumbs up I could give to the movie is just that it wasn't a 1-to-1, and it knew that, and it was trying to be something different, and I feel like it could have worked. The whole like having Mia the actual psychopath, I feel like that could have worked if only the introduction of L was done properly, like the whole gotcha moment. If that had happened, and also just get rid of the Ferris wheel. Get rid of the Ferris wheel. We don't need it.
Yeah.
I think I'd say if in the sequel they just committed to a single tone and not tried to go too over the top with the deaths, I think they could have had something like they could have had something workable.
Yeah, like the biggest thing is get somebody who can nail the tone, because this is the only Adam Wingard movie I've seen.
Oh, really?
And you haven't seen Godzilla versus Kong?
I haven't seen Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I just thought you did. That's fine.
I haven't seen The Guest or You're Next or his Blair Witch remake sequel, CD, whatever.
Josh, you would love The Guest.
I really like your.
Everybody has said that, and I'm really excited to watch it at some point, maybe before Halloween next year. But if they were going to do a sequel, I think the best thing Adam Wingard could do is step into a producer role, but bring in somebody who can actually pull off the tone that I think they wanted to go for, which is kind of what the anime goes for, where it's over the top serious, but it takes itself very seriously in a joking way, if that makes sense. If you're going to do a sequel, and I feel more comfortable saying this now, bring in James Wan.
Ooh, I could be okay. I could be very okay with that.
Bring in James Wan.
Post Malignant, James Wan doing Death Note would be amazing.
Yeah, like with how batshit Malignant gets. Malignant has kind of the same tone as the anime, I think.
You're not off.
So watching Death Note, it was like, I feel like I know what it's going for, but it's not reaching it there. No, bring in James Wan and start bringing in more of the supernatural elements of Death Note. Mm-hmm. Bring in the Shinigami eyes, and maybe what they can do now that Mia's out of the picture. They could adapt one of the key moments in the anime, but now kind of recontextualized. Because there's a big climactic thing in the anime where Misa is first introduced, because they're trying to bait an imitation Kira killer, a knockoff Kira. And there's a big standoff at this at this news station. And the thing is, they're trying to bait him, but as the police are showing up, people are dying outside of the station house. So when cops are trying to show up, they have like helmets that cover up their faces and everything. And it's one of those things where Light wants to try and figure it out. And it's just this really intense thing. I'm not doing it justice, but you know what I'm talking about, Brock. Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely. And he's not figuring it out because he's like, how the hell do they know what these people's names are? They're fully covered. They see their faces. It breaks the rules. And he talks about the eyes where you can see above the head. And you find out later that she has that. So like he's speechless because again, Ryuk in the anime is kind of an asshole. Like he gets happy when light or fails at times. So like he's the entire time he's just like he doesn't know. Oh, like they're trying to figure it out. It's a really great scene that's tense and it's hard to explain without just going beat by beat, but it's
Yeah.
Like,
it's good.
There's a whole like thing, like a major like fuck up that Light has. Like he's planned this out, like this is gonna happen, like and then it was because there was somehow, I don't remember the exact details of it, but he had to go out to a specific place where the second Kira was going to be at, and he wanted to make contact with them, but like make sure that it wasn't like no. She wanted to make contact with him, but he didn't want that. But because of him being involved with the investigation, he had to go. So in order to hide himself, he surrounded himself by different people because he knew that Misa had the eyes. So if he's like surrounded by a bunch of people and he
the names would be mixed up so they wouldn't know it was because
like Misa would have been able to see Ryuk and then see like, oh, he's connected to somebody, but because he's surrounded by a bunch of people, she wouldn't be able to tell who it was. But because Ryuk didn't tell him about one thing, that whole plan was completely botched, because that one thing that I mentioned earlier, she wouldn't have been able to see his lifespan, and Ryuk just didn't tell him that.
Mike, I think one of your favorite anime characters of all time would be Ryuk if you watch the anime.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Sounds about right.
His obsession with like apples, he compares it to humans with cigarettes. It's great.
It's
great.
They have that in the movie, but they don't explain that. It's just like, oh, I guess that's a cute little quirk. But they'll explain stuff like, oh yeah, L will eat candy because it spikes his insulin and makes him stay up for all hours of the night. Like, that is so stupid. But okay, yeah, you get James Wan, you adapt that key moment, but with the main thing, now you have L with the piece of paper. He has an idea of what light does, but this time take the second movie and have L kind of rebuild his reputation so that way he can nail Light to the freaking wall. You have Light's dad, who is trying his best to tiptoe around, because his son did cause like all this property damage. Everybody was chasing him at the end of the first movie, and Mia's dead now, so Kira's still killing, but it's like, who's doing it now? And then you introduce the Kira copycat in the form of a guy that's introduced later on, very late into the series, who's a Kira worshiper that happens upon the Death Note.
Just that one scene where he's like almost like he's fighting the Death Note. Delete.
Yeah, that's right.
Involved. You have him involved, and he's got the Shinigami eyes. Introduce that bit, so now Light has an even bigger problem to deal with. But then it's like at the very end, L's kind of one-upped everything. And what can I say? Netflix, hit me up.
Man,
I'm your concept guy.
This is such a thing where it's like, just start over, get someone else, bring Willem Dafoe back as Ryuk. That's the one thing you're keeping.
Mm-hmm.
And
everything else you can junk.
And make it a series. Get like the Duffer Brothers, for crying out loud, if you need to write it.
Ooh.
They know how to do suspense. They know how to do complicated plots. They know how to do this, and make it a series. Even if you do 9 at a time, if you do like the first series and you never even see L, and like the end credit scene is like just someone coming in on a plane and you turn and it's L, that's all you need.
And
you don't need him for the first series. You don't.
And you know what? He can still pull off a teenager.
True.
Do a remake. Yeah, do a series. Cast Jacob Tremblay as Light. Or fuck it. Go all in, because with the, I believe in the anime and in the manga, he's named Light because it's like symbolic, because literally the light of the world and this and that. Why not remake it? Actually go in on making it Americanized. Name him Moses or Noah or something like that, to literally like wash away the sin of the world or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my god, that works.
And when you get a kid like Tremblay to be L, you're almost deliberately going against type for the actor.
Yeah.
But like, you know, because of his sort of like good kid persona, it makes his turn to psychopath that much more compelling.
Yeah, like I remember back then when the movie was first like getting rumblings in Hollywood, people really wanted Zac Efron to play Light. And you know what? Fresh from High School Musical, that's what most people saw him as. I can kind of see it. And it probably would have changed the trajectory of his career, but then again, if they had a good writer and director.
Yeah. It's one of the most, in my opinion, you can knock it out of the park adaptations if you just sit and really think it out. It's just on a tee, and you've got, in the prime of his career, roided out McGuire just waiting to swing, and and then you bunted it. And I don't know if, like, it's one of those things where you have to get rights for this crap. And I don't know if, like, people are going to be like, no, you're not trying Death Note again.
Yeah, I'd be a little nervous to try it out again after this one.
Yeah.
Maybe another like 5-10 years they can give it another go.
It's a timeless concept. It is. They could do it whenever. And honestly, a little bit more distance would be a good thing for both the anime and the movie. You get a time period where they're like, oh, I don't know what this is. And then they're like, hey, it was an anime. Was it on Netflix? No, don't talk about that. Go watch that.
It's so jarring that the live action movie came out 4 years ago.
It feels like an eternity ago.
That feels like a different lifetime.
The before times.
Yeah.
Yeah. But any final thoughts here as we creep in an hour and a half?
I love it. 10 out of 10.
Would recommend.
Would not recommend.
What is this even? Hey, let's MST3K rip this thing apart. Not recommend, or just like not even recommend that.
I would say that, because at the very least, it is fun to watch. It's not like the Cinderella movie where you watch it and you feel your lifespan getting shortened as the seconds tick by.
For people who have never seen the anime, I'd recommend watch it. You laugh at it, poke some fun at it, and then watch the anime, and then fall in love with it. People who have watched the anime don't watch it.
Yeah,
because you're just gonna be angry the whole time.
Like,
yeah,
weird to get that perspective. Watch that first, and then go, oh, that's
like not even as a remix, like I do with Cowboy Bebop. Death Note sticks way too close to the point where it warps its own story and fumbles the basic conceit of it to where it's just frustrating if you try to pay attention to it.
Nice. I have to ask before we leave out of here, what were your thoughts on Ed?
I have not gotten there, but I have seen the clip.
Okay.
It is okay. Look,
okay.
I'm way kinder to Ed. I'm way kinder to the actress that they got to play Ed. I really want to see where they go in a season 2, but it's rough. But at the same time, it's a character I figured would be a very difficult time to translate, and it's only a couple minutes.
It is. It's
The-
like it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
like it's more. What frustrates me is the backlash to the actress.
It's one of my biggest fears that like one thing that I would like another crack at it, and I would never want to see a live adaptation because I would have nightmare fuels at what they would do to the person that tried to do it was them trying to ever adapt Soul Eater, and then someone tried to be Krona.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Whoever did it would be eaten alive because it's another ambiguous type of character like Ed is, where they never even, depending on what you watch, even mix a gender. It's weird, but yeah. Before we get too far away from it, Mike, general thoughts.
One of these days I will commit to finishing the anime, but for now, between this and another series that the creators of Death Note worked on recently called Platinum End, which is very not good and is pretty much the complete opposite of what made Death Note great. I'm just not in any rush to revisit this anytime soon. If you have seen the anime and are curious about this movie, you're just going to be angry the whole time, so I wouldn't even bother. If you haven't seen the anime, but you've only seen this, yeah, go watch the anime because it was like a big phenomenon during like the mid to late 2000s. So you're gonna want to see what the hype is about.
Yeah. I would suggest, honestly, if you're going to watch it, both are fine. One of my biggest impressive flexes was listening to Light's English voice actor, and I cannot remember what the guy's name is off the top of my head. But if anyone has seen New Century Zero, where Zoids, where I get my channel name from, it's the same guy who voices Harry Champ, who is the biggest, just can't get ahead in life dork ever. And then seeing the flip side with Light was kind of crazy for people's range with voice acting. But, all right. I do not have a name card for you guys yet, but I need to get one. Josh, Crystal, tell the world where they can find you and what you're up to.
You go first.
Me? Well, I've kind of been phasing out of social media, but you can still find me on Twitter under simply_ragu816. And you can also find me on Instagram under Triforce of Courage Biatch. What else? And then you can also find me on TikTok under simply_ragu816. And then you can also find me on the Renegade Pop Culture podcast group under my name, Crystal Gillum. And then you?
You can find me at Twitter at JSH Lozano, where you can actually see some first looks at the short film that I am currently in pre-production on, soon to be shooting, Rouletta, a remake of a film I made in my old that I wrote for my old production company that I was a part of back in the day. And you can also catch Crystal's occasional quote of the day, as well as her occasional thoughts on the Kingdom Hearts series.
Mm-hmm.
I've made her a fan, guys. It's the best thing in the world.
Nice.
And you can catch me on YouTube at JoshBoy64, where I'm debating making a video in time for Christmas, either about West Side Story or Spider-Man or Christmas in general. I don't know. It depends on how positive I'm feeling at that point. But I've also got a Kevin Smith and a Blue Beetle video you should check out. Poured my heart into it. And you can find me on the Renegade Pop Culture Facebook group with my name, Joshua Lozano.
There you go. You should go check his Twitter, because that one shot you posted up with the shadows and that dude holding that revolver.
Good
Woo!
stuff.
That looks nice.
Thank you.
Oh, it looks so good. I had goosebumps. That was great, dude. Mike, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. Look for us on Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we.
Absolutely. And you can find me everywhere at Organoid Zero, this YouTube channel. I think I pretty much got on everything. And I'll finally be back to streaming tomorrow because I was going to go back to streaming today, but I'll be back to streaming Donkey Kong 64 tomorrow. I'm quite excited about getting back into that. But yeah, thank you guys very much for joining. Josh and Chrisley, first time on the channel. Awesome. Hope to have you back more. Mike always is good. And until next time, we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Peace.
Later.
Bye.